Yeah, okay. And we'll make a start now. So this last week we showed you some examples. We created a very simple to-do app, both using plain JavaScript and using Vue. So they have exactly the same function, but obviously when you write it in Vue, it looks very different. And today we're going to start focus on the Vue now, because last week we kind of go through all different things very quickly, didn't really get into the details. So you can get it working, but you don't quite understand how it works and why is that the case yet. So today we're going to focus on the actual Vue instance. Let me see if I can go to full screen. Yeah. Okay, and so this is the outline for the lecture today. We're going to start with the actual coursework 1 requirements. Now we covered something, a little bit background in the Vue, so we can talk about the requirements now. And then after that, I'm going to talk about the Vue instance. That's how you create a Vue or add a Vue to your app. And we're going to have a look at the Chrome extension for Vue.js debugging. And so basically, when you run the Vue app in your browser, it's already being changed to kind of plain JavaScript code, which is done automatically by Vue. And using this extension, it can tells you and what was the original state of the Vue code or the Vue app or Vue instance, which can be quite useful when you try to find bugs or why it's not working. And finally, we're going to do a simple app. And this time, so we're going to start working on, this is like maybe the very first baby step of creating our e-commerce website. And the functionality will be very simple. All it does is just display one product, but we're going to using Vue to do it. So that's the plan for today. Okay, I'm going to start with the requirements. Okay, and so this is kind of like a brief overview we already mentioned in the module handbook in the first week. So for this module, it will be coursework only. We don't have any exams. We have these 3 courseworks, and first one is the web app with the Vue.js, which have total 35%. The second one is a progressive app, 35% again. And the last one, or the third one, is a mobile app with native script. Again, it will be using Vue as well. So today we're going to mostly just talking about the first one, which is the web app with Vue.js. How do I? Yeah. Okay. Come back here. Okay. And as I mentioned again, so each coursework will have the one marked in lab task. So this will be the group task, which you will need to do usually just before the deadline of the individual work, and it's worth 10% of the total mark. Yeah, so it'll be in lab, completed in lab and demonstrated in the labs as well. So you'll be given the, let's say you will be given a task this week and your job will be demonstrated in the lab next week. Okay, and everyone needs to be there during the, so all the members need to be there at the demonstration, even though not everyone has to join the presentation. So you can decide how many people want to present to the work. Okay, and then overall you need 40% to pass the module, and it's not required to say you have to pass each individual coursework to pass the module. So long as you overall is 40%, that will be fine. And then all the individual work needs to be demonstrated in lab. So these will be done after the submission deadline. So if we have the
All the
coursework 1
coursework,
deadline.
all the coursework or all the group works?
All the courseworks, including the group and individual ones. So the group ones you demonstrate as a group, and the individual ones you demonstrate individually.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, got you.
yeah.
Just out of curiosity, would that be done on a Monday or the Wednesday?
You mean the demonstration or?
Yeah, the demonstration.
So the demonstration will be done in your usual lab slot. For example, if you go to Tuesday lab, and then your demonstration will be in the Tuesday labs. And this, if you are in Wednesday lab, then you go do your demonstration in the Wednesday lab. If that answers the question. And okay, so also a question about the actual date. And so you can see now the first mark, the group work will be given or will be introduced in the week 5 lab. And you can already see that now. And also it's more or less the same as the requirements or marking scheme in the module handbook. So the demonstration will be in the week 6 lab. Depends on which lab you are in. The actual day will depend on which lab you are in. Okay. Hopefully that
Understood.
answers the
Yeah,
question.
that answered. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, if you don't demonstrate it, you don't get any mark, even if you submitted the work, which will be a shame. Yeah, and also, and part of the demonstration, especially the individual ones, I might ask you questions to explain why did you write the code this way and what the code does, etc. And just to make sure you actually write the code and understand it. And if you cannot explain, you will not get the mark for that part either. So you have to make sure you understand the code you wrote.
And during
Yeah.
can we write the comments just to, in our codes and submit our coursework with the comments included?
Yes. So if you want
So
to
we
add
can
some
memorize
comments,
actually what we are doing over there.
yeah. If you need, for example, commenting the code which you think can help you remind what the code does, yeah, you are more than welcome to do that.
Okay, cool.
And, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's very good. So just ask questions as we go. I prefer this, and don't wait till the end. Okay, I'm gonna come back to the slide. Okay, now we actually come on to the coursework 1, and the deadline is week 8. I hope I talk about the group work as well. Maybe I didn't. And just to show you, maybe it'll be useful to actually show you. Okay, let's just go through the slides first, and if you have questions, I can answer. And so the general idea is you create a web app, which is like an online shop, not exactly, but it does allow the students and parents looking for after-school classes and activities. So instead of selling something, it helps people to find the class or they can join or clubs. And so the first coursework do the front end in terms of the part that people can see in their browser or even on their phone or computer. And then the second coursework will add the backend, for example, the database, which stores all the information, and also make the app work offline. In the sense, even say the phone or computer don't have the internet connection, some of the function will still be able to work, rather than say have it and stop completely. And finally, the third coursework will turn this into a mobile app. In this sense, it's something you can actually submit to, say, App Store or Google Play, and people can install and search from there. Okay. Okay, so here are the requirements related to the first coursework. Again, if you have any questions, and please jump in at any time. And so for the first coursework, as we mentioned, we only look at the front end. So we do not require any backend storage. So you don't have to worry about, say, saving the user orders in a database like a MongoDB. That's not required. Okay, so instead, you store the data locally using local storage. In the sense, that's part of the browser API. And if you've done the second year web development module, I assume you already have tried that already. I think that's part of one of the courseworks there. Okay, and you can use external libraries like a Bootstrap if you want to, if you think that is going to make your app looks better. And so in terms of actual markings, there's no marks given to the design or the graphics of the app at all. And so if you want to make your apps looks better, you're more than welcome to. But if say your coursework looks fairly plain, that's completely fine. You're not going to lose any mark for that. Okay, and just to make sure, if you use any of these libraries, make sure the library file either is included in your submission. For example, if you're loading that locally from your file directory, or you can use an online, then you make sure the link is working. So for example, so far, the examples we did last week using the Vue, we're loading the Vue file as from an online server, and just make sure that online link is working, and then you don't need to including the actual files in your submission. Okay, and so you have to use Vue.js to do all the different functions, and I don't think there's any need for any other libraries, but if you absolutely have to, you have to make sure all the features that can be done in Vue and only use other features or other libraries for the feature that cannot be done in Vue, which is really, I can't really think of any benefit of doing that. And this is really just says don't use other framework, which is similar to Vue, is like Angular or React to do the work. And also, yeah, mostly just like that. Okay, and then there's also some kind of hard requirements and must be implemented using Vue. I guess it's not very surprising. Okay, and this part may be new to someone. So you must store the code in the GitHub repository, and GitHub is a website, and a repository is like a storage of the code which you can use. And then, okay, hang on, just give me 1 second, I'll be right back.
Yo, did my man just cut from the lecture, bruv?
He went inside the uni.
Yeah. We're
Okay.
back.
Yeah, I'm back now. So we're gonna explain what Git is, how to use GitHub, and I think in 2 weeks' time. So you need at least 10 commits, and which is actually, in my looks fairly big, but it's actually quite easy to achieve. And this is just to encourage you to use GitHub regularly, commit all your work, and you can easily have more than 10 commits. Okay, and then the app must be available online using GitHub Pages. So GitHub Pages is part of the GitHub. It allows you to host your static website, like HTML, CSS code online, so people can see, and your work will be made available online using GitHub Pages. That basically means it can run your Vue app online. Okay, and then it must be demonstrated. We already talked about this before. Okay, and you must be able to explain, and you must have implement it in Vue.js. Okay. Okay. Now I'm gonna actually talk about the marking criteria, and so the first one is about the group task. This is
Sorry,
this you do in the lab.
sorry, what was the last point of last tab?
So I think I already mentioned this already. So it must be done. Basically, it must be done using Vue.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and now getting to a little bit more details about the actual marking scheme. And so first is about the group lab, sorry, the group work, group task, and 10%. So the first part you need to do is display the information of one lesson. So I give you examples, say this is a lesson called the math, have some informations that counts for 3%, and uniquely including at least these informations. So the subject, location, price, and number of spaces. So we have the subject, location, price, and spaces. And then all the lesson information must be stored in a Vue object. So this is just really to make sure you're actually using the Vue for this. Okay, and then the lessons have an add to cart button, so which is this button here. And the number of space will reduce by 1 after clicking the add to button if it was greater than 0. So basically every time when user click this button, and the number of available space will reduce by 1.
Wait, sir, is
Yeah.
this for next week's lab? So is this what we're doing with our groups next week, this part?
No, this is the actual lab task, or you are supposed to start on week 5 when it will be needed to be demonstrated in week 6. But if you want to start early, that's also okay. It's just you can decide among your group members. Yeah. Okay. And then the next one is no change happens after clicking the add to cart button if number of space equals 0. So basically, you have this button every time you click, the space reduce. Eventually, it will go to 0, and then you can't add anymore. So you can't basically, if you click
Disable the
add to
button.
cart, doesn't change anymore.
Mhm.
Okay. Let's come back here. Okay, yeah, and so that's the add to cart button, which give you 4%, and also for this group work, you also have to put it on GitHub and using GitHub Pages. So slightly less number of commits, just for 5. Yeah. Then you must be able to host it on GitHub Pages. This is something we're going to cover later on. So any other questions regarding to the group work?
What's V on?
Okay,
The
and
third
that's part of they call it directives. That's part of the Vue.js, and so it's something similar. It's for interaction, something similar to say onClick when you're using plain JavaScript. We'll cover more on that in the lecture.
Wait, sir.
Not this week, but next week. Yeah.
Wait, so if we start this, so this work, we're starting it at week 5, and it's due week 6. So we only have 1 week to work on this.
Yeah.
What are we doing next week then? Like, are we gonna start this in next lab or the lab after?
So I would just say that the tasks, the group task, we're going to cover again in week 5 lab, partly because there's many things and we will not have been covered. For example, how to use Vue before that. And you can start anytime you want. You can start now if you really want. And in terms of actual amount of work, I think it should be doable within 1 week, even if you start in week 5 and within a group, and that's everything I already showed here. I would just say if you understand everything, basically for lectures, you understand everything, for example, how Vue works, how GitHub works, the entire work should only take a few hours. So I wouldn't worry too worried about saying not having time to do it within 1 week. That's my estimation. But that's on assumption you already studied everything and understand everything. That will take much longer than a few hours. Okay, I hope that answers the question.
I have a question for the first coursework. So when we're doing our first coursework, it's going to be it's just going to be a regular website. It's not going to be a mobile app, is it?
No, it will run on browser and it will not say run on Android or iOS, not that yet. You could open it in the browser on the mobile phone, but that's about it. It will not work like a native app yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope. Okay, now we're going to do a bit more details about individual tasks. And it's not that different from the group task, but kind of has more requirements. You need to do a little bit more, add a bit more functions and features. Okay, and the first you have to display lessons, and this accounts for 5% out of a total 25, and you need 10 lessons. And each lesson should have 5 spaces. This means the number of the place available for each class. And you need at least this information, which is the same as the group work. So there's no difference there. And so that's the only difference is I wanted to add pictures or icons and to each of class information, the information for each class. That's all. Okay, and then I got a couple of questions here already. So see the list of the lessons should be stored in a separate JSON file. So actually this will be a normal JS file, and inside the JS file, it will be just a JSON object, which contains or an array of JSON objects, which contains the all array, okay, all your 10 lessons or all the lesson information. Yeah, and you have to use something called v-for, which allows you to loop through a collection or a list, and then displays all the lessons inside it. And any questions so far? Okay, and so this might be something it look like in the end in terms of display lessons. You have here in this case you have 5 lessons. I think if you can do 5 to 10, it's fairly easier. It's very similar, and you have displayed all these information required. You have the add to cart button, which is the same as before. But now you need a picture. So here we'll use some picture. This one to show maths, and that's for English. And you need to do this for 10, even though I just only showed 5 here. Okay, and then you need to be able to sort the list of the classes. So you can either sort by subject, by location, by price, and by availability. And so the sorting itself and does not require Vue. You can just done it quite easily using plain JavaScript, but you need the user interface where the user can select which attributes to sort. That will need to be done in Vue.js. Okay, I've been missing the questions in the chat. Okay, someone asked about the Bootstrap. Yes, you can use Bootstrap, and which version you want to use, up to you. And there's questions about commits. So that's a concept related to the Git, which we'll cover when we cover the Git in the lecture. I'm not entirely sure. Okay, and then another question about to say, is the group work and individual work due on the same week? The answer is no. The group work will be due 2 weeks and before the individual work. So the group work will be presented in week 6, whereas the individual work will be due in week 8 when you submit. I'm not entirely sure about the question from Gabriel. And so it's asking the page has to be either HTML or directly on app.vue. Ah, okay, I see. And so we not gonna using .vue extension or .vue file at all for the first coursework. So it's just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you want to put everything inside HTML, that will be fine. But we are not doing any .vue file. Okay, I'm not gonna answering anything related to the group now. We're gonna do that in the lab. Is there going to be more than one HTML file? That's entirely up to you. You need at least one. I think it's possible to put everything inside one HTML file. Of course, this does not mean you're including the HTML and the CSS. Sorry, the JavaScript and the CSS. Yeah, individual. So both the individual and the group work is part of the coursework 1. And also there's a question about this JSON, that storing the data in the JSON format. That's only for the individual work, not for the group work. Do we need to present the individual work as well? Yes, you will need to. So the individual work will be presented individually and just between you and me. That will be done during the lab after the weeks, in the weeks after the submission deadline. Okay, I think I catch up with all the questions now. And now let's actually get back to the the requirements. So we were talking about sorting. So the sorting needs to be done based on different attributes or the information or columns of the lesson information. And then there needs to be an option to change the sorting order as well, either ascending or descending. So it may be something like this. And again, this is just a schematic. It's not the actual how the app would look like. How you want to design your app is entirely up to you. But for example, you have like 2 panels on the side or pane on the side, and the user can choose between which things they want to sort by subject location. For example, here it's sorting by price, and then you can choose whether it's by ascending or descending order. In this case, maybe by default it's ascending order, and certainly the actual price is not sorted in that order. Yes, so the question from Dennis says, is this how it would look on the browser? I think this is just to demonstrate one possibilities, and your actual design might be slightly different. You might put these options of sorting somewhat, say, on top on the right-hand side. The way you display these lessons, you might display them as a list rather than boxes. That's completely okay. There's no fixed design, so long as you have the feature there. Okay, let's come to the next slide. Okay, the next part of the marking scheme is about add to cart. It comes another 5%. As we already mentioned, each lesson must have an add to cart button. This is the same as in the group work. And okay, so the button should be only visible when there's space available. If it's run out, it should not be an option to add to cart. And then clicking the button once will add 1 space to the shopping cart, reducing the remaining space by 1. So this part is the same as the group work. So every time user click add to cart button, the available space will be reduced by 1. Okay, and so again, this is what it might look like. So Okay, and the shopping cart option, or if you maybe have a button for shopping cart, should only be visible after at least one lesson is added. And when it's empty, the shopping cart button should not be there. And then click the shopping cart button should go to a separate page or new page. It just could, or it also could be a new part of the page with the option to go back to the lesson page. And then the shopping cart should show the lessons added. And then the user should be able to remove lessons from the shopping cart. So what's shown here, the picture, is the actual shopping cart page or section. And then you can see the 2 lessons that the user added. And you have the remove button where the user can click and then to remove them from the shopping cart. Okay, and then we have the checkout part, and it's comes for another 5%. So it should be part of the shopping cart page, which allow user to check out essentially, and on a real website. So this is where you're gonna pay for whatever you want to buy. So in this case, we ask a user to provide the minimum information, which is the name and the phone number. If you want to add other user details, that'll be fine. So in this coursework, we don't ask a user to say register and create an account. So this will be kind of information you would ask if you want a user to create an account. But here we just ask the user to provide those information at the checkout. Okay, and so the names must be letters only and the phone must be numbers only. So these will be something you need to write code to check or validate the user input. Yeah, and also the checkout button, which is shown here, should be disabled by default, and it only becomes enabled or clickable after the valid name and phone numbers are entered. Okay, I think that's everything I want to talk about in terms of the coursework requirement. Is any other questions about the coursework?
After the checkout, when they click on the checkouts, yeah, what's gonna happen? Like that's it. But
Yeah, that's it. That's it. So
okay.
you might display a message, say checkout successful or something.
Okay.
Or
So,
you're not required to say
Mhm.
do actual payment or anything after that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So this first part is just solely front end.
Yes. In a sense, you don't connect to any database or server.
All right, cool. Thanks.
Okay. So now we're actually going to move on to going to talk about the Vue now. And as before, there'll be more kind of live coding in this section. So I'm going to switch between the slides and the browser as we go. Okay. And so if you remember from last week, and to create a Vue or start using Vue.js, you need this so-called Vue instance, or more specifically, root Vue instance. So that's like the father of all the Vue instance. You can have more than one in your code. And so to do that is quite straightforward. You just say and Vue constructor new, just say new Vue. Actually, let me find the code from last week so you can see what I meant. Give me a minute. Okay, I'm just opening up the code in the Visual Studio Code. Okay, it's force you to come to this side. Yeah, I know I'm get updated. I'm gonna go back here. I'm gonna exit. And so I can go back here. Yeah. Okay. So I guess is the text too small, or are you able to see the code?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, I'll make it slightly bigger. I imagine it might be slightly too small. Okay, so this would be something similar, not identical to what we did last week. Let me wrap the text as well. Maybe slightly smaller. Okay, now we can see everything. So to create the Vue root instance, this is what you do. You just say new Vue. And in this case, we give it an we assign that to a variable as well, so we can reference that easily later if we want to reference to this Vue object. And you can easily do away without this. It will create a Vue instance as well. So that's all you need. So it looks fairly simple, but actually you can put lots of things inside this little bracket. So as if you can see in the code, and you have the bracket start here and end here. So everything like EL, data, and methods, all inside this bracket. Okay, that's something maybe, I guess, not so familiar to you, because usually you might just have one or two variables. But essentially inside here, you have a JSON object. You have different properties, which is EL, data, and methods, and many other things. And the value of these properties itself can be an object, in this case, JSON object, or a function like this. Okay, yeah. So that's exactly what we're talking about here. Whatever is inside this inside of this bracket is the called option object. It contains everything that you needed. And for the view, so the first one is called the EL, which is to specify the element where the view will be mounted to. So we'll use the word mount quite often. So essentially it just says and where the Vue app will exist or apply to. So this is what we have here. So we say the EL is hashtag app. So basically hashtag, you all know in HTML, hashtag means ID. That means you're gonna attach or mount onto a element with the ID called app. So you certainly have to have that in your code, which is what we have here. Okay, and then the option object itself, which is a standard JSON object. And so a JSON object is made up of key value pairs. So you have the first key and its value, second key and its value, and so on. Okay, and so if we can go back to the code, so these are the keys, and the EL, the data, and the method. And whatever is after the column is its value. So in this case, it's a string, and inside is hashtag app. And for this one itself, its value is another JSON object. And inside that JSON object has different attributes or keys and values. And for the method, it is also a JSON object, but this particular object contains a function inside as its value. Okay, let's get back to the slide. Okay, and so here the EL, data, and methods are predefined all the keys. So you can define other keys with different names, but these are predefined. That has special meanings to the view. They know EL stands for the element that will be mounted. data will be storing or everything related to data for the view, and the methods will be including the functions. So in that sense, you have to use EL, data, methods, and several other predefined keys. Otherwise, the view would just treat it as a normal key and key value pair and don't know what to do with them or don't know how to use them properly.
Wait, sorry, could you explain the data and the methods one again? What do those two do within the Vue constructor?
Okay, we're gonna come to that. We basically haven't covered those yet. And so far, all you need to understand is when you create an instance and you have this option object, and inside object you have key value pairs. You can have many of them, and some keys are predefined, like these ones, and you have to use those to tell. And if you use these, Vue would know what to do with them. Otherwise, it would not understand if you use different names. For example, if you say EL instead element, and Vue will not recognize it and will not know what to do with it. We're going to explain exactly how to use EL data and methods very soon. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. So this is quite similar. And I just showed you in the Vue Studio Code editor. So we can see, and in this case, and we have a div element which defines ID. It's called app. So this is the ID going to be used to link to the Vue.js code or Vue.js app or mount. Sometimes it's called mount. And so it doesn't have to be a div. It could be any other element, but usually it's a div or some kind of, say, main or kind of these or article or these structural. It's rare, say people would say use an h1 and then mount a view to it, a Vue instance to that. That's very rare. Okay, and these are the standard HTML. We're not gonna go through too much about it. Okay, and so then here is creating a Vue instance. You always need that. And in this particular case, we call it the root Vue instance. And we're gonna explain why it's called root a little bit later when you have multiple kind of children instance inside. Okay, and the EL is where you link to the particular elements. You can say hashtag app, and you can even say h1 or div here, just to demonstrate what I mean. So you can even say div. What it will do, it will try to find a div element in your page, because if there's, in this case, there's only one, so that would work. But in some cases, if I have many divs, it will be difficult to know which element exactly you're referring to. So usually using using ID is a good way, because you can only have one ID, a specific ID on that page. There's only one element can have that ID on the page. It's not possible to have two. There's no possible confusion. Okay, and then here, the data part defines the different kind of data properties or data attributes you can use in Vue. We're going to come back to it becomes clearer and what these means and how to use them when we actually see the example. But I mean, just think of, say, any object. You might have some data stored inside. This is what data for. And an object might have some methods. And in this case, we have an add item function. Then this, again, so this will be a function that can be called inside this div. And in here, you can reference new task inside here. Then because it's part of the view, it can understand you're referring to this one here. And inside this div, you can also call add item function. And then it will understand this is a function and it will run whatever code you define here. So all of this will becomes clearer when we actually go see the code. Yeah. And so for this part lecture, we're gonna just try to create something similar to this, a very simple, like a e-commerce site or app, and it only shows one product. So it sells pet products, and in this case, it has one cat food, 25-pound bag is a one big bag for $20. So that's what we're going to try to do today. And so this is the same examples in the textbook, Vue.js in action. And we're going to build an online pet accessory shop called Pet Depot. So that's what here shows Pet Depot. So in a sense, from a programming or technical point of view, it's very similar to the after-school class app we do for the coursework. So the only difference is instead of listing pet products, it will be listing classes. That's the main difference. Okay, and also, and this is something useful to know is, and because this is from this textbook, and they actually put all the example code, or code examples they mentioned in the book online in a GitHub repository, the same GitHub we're going to use for our coursework. So if you go to there, it looks something like this, and it says break into chapters, and you go into, say, chapter 1, and you can have the 2 examples, or maybe let's look at chapter 2, which is what we're covering today, and you can say some of these examples, and let's say this is first view, and that gives you the code. You will see the same code in the book as well, but this is give you a kind of version we can easily copy paste. If you want to use, you don't have to say type yourself, especially when you only have a printed hard copy of the book. Okay, so this is kind of the examples we're gonna start with. Let me see. Okay, so this is kind of a start point to create this kind of online pages, and it doesn't have everything in there yet, but it's a good point, a good place to start. Okay, and so instead of going through here, I'm gonna just do that in my code editor. So let me open a new location. File, open. This will be week 3. Let's call this one demo. Okay, I'm gonna create my first file, and I'm just gonna save this called pet depot, as this is our .html. I might just still call it index.html, that's easier. Okay, and I'm going to do the similar thing, going to use an exclamation mark and just do the initial thing. And in terms of document title, we might just call it pet depot. So that's going to be my, how do I say? That's going to be the title that's going to show up in the browser. Spelling wise off. Okay, and so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open that in the live server, so I can open with live server so I can see what it looks like as it goes on. Okay, it will be difficult to see it, but I couldn't quite change the font size for the tab title. So
That's right, so we can see it.
Yeah, and if you've got good eyesight or big screen, I doubt you can see it on a laptop. It says the title is Pet Depot. because the body currently is empty, and so there's nothing to do. So there's nothing there yet. Okay, and if we come back and to the slides, and so the first thing we need to do is to add this link. What it does, it links to, so basically that loads the Vue files we need, so we can start using it. So this is online server, so you don't have to include anything else or local files. So you definitely will need this one. Okay, so that has to go to your head section before you can do any, say, instance later on, etc. Okay, and here in the lecture, and it gives you some examples to load some style sheets you want to format for your web app, sorry, the e-commerce shop app. And it's really, so these are just fairly standard CSS style file, and you can either link them with a local path or an online path, or in this case, say if you want to use Bootstrap, that's completely fine. And we're not going to do anything here. Okay, and then, so this is the part actually you will need in your code to actually start creating the Vue app. So first you will need a container or an element in your body, which actually does that the the Vue app can mount on or can link to. So I'm going to do just use a div. I'm going to give it a ID, just call app, which is not very creative, but that should be okay for now. So again, so you can see that's a quicker way. We mentioned emit before. So if you type div and there's the hashtag, which means I'm gonna want an ID, and the ID gonna be the app, and it will automatically recognize and create a div tag with the ID equal to app inside. Okay, that's all we need in terms of something to mount to the Vue app. And then we're gonna need the actual Vue.js code. So that has to be JavaScript. You can load a JavaScript file, but in this case, we're gonna just use a script tag. Okay, and then just similar as before, we need to use new Vue, and we have this curly bracket inside. So this is what we call where the option object goes into. Currently it's empty. Yeah, and then we can start into adding the different options. So obviously the first one you always need is EL. And because if you remember, this is key value pairs, so you have to use comma, not equal sign here. And we want to link to this one here. So we just say EL. And this is an element whose ID is app. Okay, so you can't just say app. You have to make it clear, say this is ID, that is app. Okay. Yeah, so that's it. So now this will give you a very basic app. So we did the minimum setup needed for Vue, load the actual Vue file online, have an HTML element that Vue can mount onto. We create the Vue instance, the root instance, and then we link the Vue instance to this HTML element. Okay, so these are the minimum setup we need. Obviously, we haven't have anything yet. So if we go to the actual page or the app itself, if I can see, yeah, this one here is still the same. Nothing show up here yet. Just says pet depot. And any questions so far? Okay, just in the lecture slides, we actually give a variable name to the Vue object. It's optional, but it's quite useful later on if you want to refer to this. we actually might do that as well, because that's be useful later on when debugging. So we can say, and let web store equal to new view. Okay, so this is a variable. You can see we are using let here instead of the bar in the slides. They achieve the same results, but the bar is like the old way. The let is the new world. That's the opposite of constant, which says something you cannot change later on. For most of the variables, just using let will be fine. Yeah. Okay. 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 There's some discussions in terms of what you can use here. So you can use any CSS selectors. So you can refer to element, class, ID, etc. So in our case, we use the ID, but you can put in, say, a class name as well. For example, if this one has a class equal to shop, and you can do a class as well, but you have to do dot, so it means it's class and shop, and it will refer to the same div element as well. But because you can have multiple elements belongs to the same class on a page, so it's can be confusing for the app exactly which one you refer to, and that's why we usually just use ID, which is more specific. Yeah. Okay, so Vue here will choose the first one. So if you have multiple elements of the class store, it will use the first one. And if you look at this example, and here, the EL, it's linking to a div. So that says, so here it does not have dot or hashtag. That means just a type of HTML element. So long as a div, it will mount onto it. And Vue would do that to the first div element it can find on the page. So if you have multiple ones, it links to the first one. This can be, I guess, sometimes maybe not the best. And so you can say, I cannot just want to link to div like this, and you are hoping it will link to here. But later on, for example, if somehow you add other divs before that, and then it will mount it here instead rather than here, might not be the exact behavior that you want. So again, we will recommend just using ID just to make it more specific. Okay, and you can have multiple Vue instances on a single page, and each of them can mount it to different DOM elements by unique selectors. Okay, so for example, you can have div ID, and you have some here, and you can have another div with, say, it's called app2, and you can have, say, a second let. A hashtag. Okay, so you can see what I did here is I create a second Vue instance. That's completely okay. You can have multiple ones on the same page. This Vue instance have a different name called new instance, and it's linked to a different element which has the ID called app2. So that's completely fine. You can have multiple instances and links to different elements on the same page. Okay, yeah, so this is example now here. So you can have 3 divs, has different IDs, 1, 2, and 3. Then you can define 3 Vue instances, links to 1, 2, and 3, respectively. Okay, So that's all we're going to talk about in terms of the Vue instance. And it's nothing exciting yet, but we are getting there. We have to set everything up first. So before we go any further creating our shop, we're going to just talk about the Chrome extension and for the Vue.js debugging. So you're bound to have problems. Say, okay, I wrote the code, but it doesn't appear, nothing happens, or is not the way I wanted or expected. And this is where the debugging comes in. Okay, so the first, you have to make sure the Vue app is running. So that just basically means this page, if you create it, you make sure it is opened up and in your browser, which we already did. It's opened up in here, nothing's there yet, but it certainly is running. And so one thing you can check is if you open up the console, which is part of the developer tools, you should see some message like this. Then that tells you the Vue app is running. So it will prompt you to install this extension, or then it tells you you are running in developer mode, and which give you some more output, and which will be, these messages will be hidden if you are in the production mode. So we can do exactly here. In this browser, so we can open the developer tools, which is on this side. And in your case, it might be at the bottom, for example, like this. It doesn't really matter. You can change the settings. Okay. And if you go to console, okay, so you can see this message here. Okay, you are running Vue in development mode. So make sure to turn on production mode when deploying for production. And these are links for more information. So that tells you the Vue is actually running, even you can't really see anything on this page yet. And if you don't have this, that means maybe there's something wrong in your code and your Vue instance is not loaded properly. Okay. Yeah, so this is what you will see in the browser. Okay, so if you give the Vue instance a name, then you can use that name to refer to in the browser to check the status of the instance. So if we go back to our code, we can see, okay, for this app, we call it Web Store. And the second one we call New Instance. So these are the two variables we can type in the console, and it will be recognized. It will give you some information back. So let's do that. So here, this is my console. You can see I select console. So if I start typing web store, you can see it's already recognized, but you can automatically finish it for you. And you can see all these different informations it has about the web store. So some of these will be what you created, like the EL. Let me see if I can find, okay, yeah. You can see the EL is here, and it refers to a div element with ID called app. And these all other things are created by the Vue library. You don't have to worry about. And similarly, if we type new instance, and it will recognize that as well. Okay, and so, for example, you can see, okay, this one is linked to the div, which is called an app2. So that's what you should and is work as expected. Okay. Okay, and and because I already installed this extension called Vue DevTools extension, and otherwise you should see this prompt. It says download the Vue DevTools extension for a better development experience, and that's the GitHub page for the tools. And this, so because I'm using Chrome and we're going to be only support Chrome in this module. And so this is where you can find from Chrome, I think it's called the Chrome extension web store. And so if you just search for Vue.js dev tools, you should go to a page like this. So I will say Chrome Web Store, and it would look something like this, which allows you to install different extensions, and then you're just searching for Vue Dev Tools. Okay, and it should be this one. So this is more, I think, is the official one. This is the better one. So it's not the like the, how do I say? This is will be the stable version. This is the better one. And then if you haven't installed, there should be an option here to allow you to install that to your browser, and then you can start using that. Okay. Before we go on, can I see a show of hands? How many of you used any Chrome extension before? If you have used, please click yes, and if you never use any, please click no. Okay. So majority of you would have used. Okay, some of you haven't. Yeah. Okay, and Chrome extension, there's many of them. They allows you to add some functions or features which does not come with the standard Chrome. And I think maybe the most common one you probably might be already using is some kind of ad block extension. And you can have, these are not most popular ones, yeah, but like something like ad block plus, etc., etc. These allows you to block the ads on different web pages. So when it's running, then you will see something in your browser, in this case, something here. And these are the many different extensions that are installed. And what we need to install is this where Vue.js DevTools extension. That's the name of extension. And once it's installed, that will be the icon you see. And sorry, it's quite small. This is what you see, which is essentially this version. And currently, that is grayed out because it does not detect any view on this page. And if you install it and go to a page which has a view running, like this one, our pet store, you can see this icon actually becomes colored. So that means it detects that view running and is active now. Okay. And if you're coding along, like following along, you can try to install the extension now. Okay. And then to find it, once you installed and it is not immediately different, if you just look at the developer tools, and it's a little bit hidden because it creates its own tab among all different options you have at the top. So the elements, console, source, these are default ones that comes with Chrome. And so after install extension, you should have a new panel or menu option called View here. It might be hidden, so you have to click the arrow keys to get to it. Okay, and you can see it now recognizes two routes on your page, and it is two because we created the two Vue instance here. So if you click this one, okay, this is so it doesn't show anything yet because basically these two are both empty. We don't have any attributes yet. But at least if you have the DevTools installed, the Vue DevTools, then you should go to the Vue page and it will recognize the different route or instance on your page. For example, I can comment out this one. So now it should be only one. and refresh, you can see there's only one, which is this one here. But it doesn't really give you any other information for later on when we say add data and data values or data property attributes to the store, and it will show up here as well. But for now, you just need to know you can install a Vue extension, then you will have this option in your develop tools and give you a better look of what's happening with your Vue instance, which can be quite useful when you're debugging, try to find errors in your code, what is and is not working. Okay, we'll go back to the slides. Okay, yeah, we covered. So one thing you might need to do is to allow access to file URLs. So this is when you open a HTML file directly from your file, from your computer. And for example, I can open the same file here. Let's do this one, demo. Okay, if you look at this URL, you can see it's not like a web URL, which we used here. Oh no, in the other one. Say you have IP address and port number and file number. Actually, I might take it here. Hey, I'll put this one in this tab. Anyway, and so there is the option to allow by default, and the Vue instance is not allowed to access a file on your local computer. And to change that, you need to allow access to file URLs in the settings. The way you do it is you right-click the icon. Does this work or? This goes to the page. And so you right-click on the icon, you choose Manage Extensions, then you would see the Vue, the options for the Vue extension. And one of these, it says allow access to file URLs. So if you click that, then it allows you, if you open the file directly from the file directory, instead of using a local server or online server, it will be able to be enabled here as well. So that's what's happening here. You can see this is colored up, so I can use on this page as well. Okay, and so if you're seeing this one colored, that means it's working and detecting the Vue. And with this, that means it's installed, but it didn't find any Vue on the page. Okay, I think we need to move slightly faster now. Okay, and so this is div tools. Finally, we're going to display one product with Vue.js. Okay, so this will be the code. And the main difference is now we have more actually in the data. So first, we're going to define one first property is just called the site name. And it just use that to show the title of my web store. So you can easily do this by doing add an h1 in your HTML code. But here we're going to just using data attributes from the Vue. Okay. Okay, so if we go to my code editor, we can say, then we're going to go to my data key, and we're going to have a few of these. And then the first one, we'll just call the site name, and I may just call it pet depot. Okay, so first you define this one. So it's like a variable or property that you can use with your Vue instance. And because this is linked, div is linked or mounted here, so you can reference to site name, and it will use and pet depot instead. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have an h1 element. I'm not going to type the actual title here, but I'm going to using v text. So that's part of the Vue directive. It just says use whatever value. In this case, I call it site name. Is using the value of the site name. Use that as the text for this h1 element, or can be a p, could be li, anything. So what happens is now you will have a h1 which shows pet depot. Okay, so I'm gonna save the page now, and we go back to my browser, and you can see now it shows pet depot, and that's because we add the h1 here, and it loads the values from site name, and site name has a value called pet depot. So if we refresh here as well, and you can click a root, okay, now you can see, and it have a data section, it has a value, a property called the site name, or a key called site name, its value is called pet shop. And you can actually change it here. You can edit to anything here, and then this one should update as well. So I can change to pet depot 2, and you can see now this one changed to pet depot 2. So basically this h1 will show the whatever values the site name is. Yeah. So that's possibly the most important concept you need to understand. Was there a question or?
Yeah, so site name is something which is prefixed, yeah?
Sorry?
Site name is something which is prefixed. So it's very...
No. And the name of this variable here, you can
Yeah.
call it anything. You can just call it
Okay.
name.
Oh, okay. Yes.
You can just, as you would define a variable in JavaScript, you can say the variable called the app store, or just called app or web or something.
Okay.
I can call it name, and then save, and you can see it no longer work because here we still refer to site name. But if I change here to site name to name again, you can see it shows back up. So the actual variable name here, you can call it whatever you want.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're slightly behind, so we have to go a little bit faster. Okay, and so we now shows the headings, and not particularly exciting. You could very well just say you can do h1 and then show and pet depot here, and which give you almost the same results. Nothing too fancy. So we're going to actually try to show one product now. We go back to the slides. Yeah, so you would look at like this. Okay, now we can add something a little bit more. So first we need to add the information about the product we want into the actual Vue instance. In this case, we have a new property called a product. I'm gonna store all these information and about my product in there. And so just to save time, I'm not gonna type these. I'm gonna copy paste these ones. But what I will do is I can come here. So I can add a new key or new property of my data. So it's important to stop here with a comma. I'll have a new variable or Vue variable or property called product, and its value will be an object itself. And then I'm gonna paste in everything I have. I'm gonna format it slightly so it looks nicer. I'm gonna wrap the line as well. Okay, so as you can see, the value for this product property is an JSON object itself. It has ID, title, description, price, and image. Quite a few of these different properties, and they have these own values. So ID is a number, title is a string, and image again is a string, which you can find the pictures actually. So now I saved this, and we go back here. You can see the page itself. It doesn't really change, but if you click on the root, you can see it recognized now we have a product object. It has these properties inside with their own values. So we haven't displayed any of these on the page yet. So for the user, it will still look like this. Seems nothing changed. Okay, let's turn this one back on so we can see the things. But you know definitely it's working because just from this extension. Okay, now we're gonna starting to add some of the information onto the page. First, and we're gonna do is add the picture. So this will be something like this picture here. We want to add it to our product, the e-commerce website. So we're gonna using, okay, maybe the most important part is just this part. And so it's an image tag, which is the same as you would use before, including pictures onto any web pages. And the source should refer to where you can find the picture. So usually it's a file name, for maybe you have path in front, sometimes even an online picture. But in this particular case, we're going to be using something called vbind, which would say using product.image value as the value for the source property of the picture. Okay, I'm going to try to explain that. So first on the page, let's say, okay, I have the name, now I'll add the picture. So this will be your usual image tag. And usually you would type in, say, and this is this is usually how you would do to fix a picture. And in this case, you're probably not going to find it. Let me go to the browser. It's not showing up yet. I thought it would have some errors. Pet food. Okay, and you can see the picture, I can't find it yet. And so if I actually looking for the picture, it would be in images, product full size. Okay. So this would be images and product full size. Ooh. Oh, it's still not showing up. Okay, I'm not sure why it's not working. It was recognizing the path. There's some errors. Sorry. So you can see two errors here. I'll go to console. It says this one images are product full size.png. Not found. Okay. So you're not allowed to use that directly here. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, just to make things a bit easier, I'm gonna just put the picture in the same direction here, which you can't really see, but I'm copying over something. Then instead, I can just do this. That should work now, and you can see it. Okay, so this is what you do before, but today we're not gonna type in the actual picture file name and pass here directly. What we're gonna do is we're gonna first say v bind source equal to product dot image.
Not found.
And then or how to remove this one here. Okay, maybe not remove this one. So what it does, it says, so this is come from Vue. It says I'm gonna bind the source property to product.image from my Vue instance. So that's product, an object. .image means the image property of the product, and it should give you a path like this in your picture. So we can actually go here and we can click this element here. You can see it translates to image source equal to image slash product full size.png.
What if I
Okay.
have two pictures in the product?
Sorry?
If I have two pictures in product, is this possible?
Two pictures in product. Yeah. No, you can have, say, another one, image 2, and then it has a different name. I have to have a dot here. I'm gonna do just call it something else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also okay. So you just have to reference here instead of product.image, you say product.image2. And the reason here it doesn't work is because, and this one is not correct because it's in the same directory. We don't need the parsing from, so we just do this, and it works. So you translate to this, and it shows the pictures. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we're just, because we're running out of time, and you can do other things. For example, here you can see. Where is it? Okay. Then you can add a title. Okay, it says v text, which is similar before. This one we time length or using the name property here. Here we're using product.title, so it's product.title property. So it should show this one here. So if we save, go back to the browser, and you can see this one is shown up now. And you can imagine, and this line adds the product.description, which is these text there. And finally, the price. So this is the shorthand of doing vtext. So instead of saying vtext equal to product.price, you can just use double curly bracket, which is exactly the same as saying vtext equal to. And this is just slightly short and quicker to type and used in other packages as well. Okay. Okay, and we have to stop there now. I have got a different meeting I have to go to. And so that's the reading for today, which is a chapter 2 of our book. And I will come back next week and starting from here, I'll cover the last couple of slides we didn't finish today.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, yeah, I'll stop there now.
Thanks, so bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Ah.
All right, bye.